The New York Times is back at it with the booming economy. The economy is booming. For who, I don't know. Maybe the New York Times headline, the U.S. economy is booming. So why are economists worrying about a recession? There is little sign that a recession is imminent, but sky-high demand and supply shortages are testing the economy's limits. I'll read a little bit. Employers are adding hundreds of thousands of shitty jobs a month, jobs a month, and would hire even more people if they could find them. Consumers are spending, businesses are investing, and wages are rising at their fastest pace in decades. So naturally, economists are warning of a possible recession. Rapid inflation, soaring oil prices, and global instability have led forecasters to sharply lower their estimates of economic growth this year and to raise their probabilities of an outright contraction. Investors share their concern. The bond market last week flashed a warning signal that is often, though not always, foreshadowed a downturn. Such predictions may seem confusing when the economy, by many measures, is booming. The United States has regained more than 90% of the jobs in the early weeks of the pandemic, and employers are continuing to hire at a breakneck pace, adding 431,000 jobs in March alone. The unemployment rate has fallen to 3.6%, barely above the pre-pandemic level, which was itself a half-century low. Before I give my spiel, people I trust, including you, have said, not that, a recession might happen. It's coming.
Yes, sir. Let me tell you how it works. You've got $1.3 trillion right now that Biden is looking to reduce the deficit by. I just talked about this last week on Let's Get Ready to Grumble. Check out last week. Forgive me for the microphone. Fact of the matter is that we not only have $1.3 trillion in deficit reduction. Think of the bathtub as having a bunch of water in it, and that right there is our economy. No, you got it. And what they've done is by reducing 1.3 trillion out of the bathtub, they're draining water out of the bathtub. That's your deficit reduction. It's not like the country is suddenly pocketing that money in fat stacks like Breaking Bad. They are literally deleting that money. So 1.3 is taken out. The economy is no longer surviving by federal spending. Okay. So now what happens? How do you fill that bathtub up? You fill the bathtub up with private debt. So what happens when you get too much private debt? All of a sudden, you've got no other way to get money into the economy. And so now they're jacking up interest rates. The Fed is talking about going 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, all the way up to 1. What does that do? The rich have already gouged the shit out of the economy with inflation and price gouging. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to raise interest rates, which is going to be a basic income for the people that already have money. So the rich are getting richer. And it's going to make the cost of credit for you and I who are desperate to survive. We're going to have to take out loans to survive if we even have credit, if we're even worthy of credit, if we haven't already crashed and burned and become economically non-viable. So at the end of the day, the recession will come unless there's a federal intervention, unless Biden somehow or another does something like eradicate student debt, or even that right now isn't enough because, quite frankly, we're not paying student debt now, and we're already seeing that problem. So we need something to infuse money into the economy. And again, there's only two ways that it happens, really three. One is that the federal government spends money into the economy. Two, you and I take out private debt. Or three, we suddenly become a net exporter. We're not a net exporter, folks. We're a net importer to the tune of about $500 billion a year. So we got a $500 billion balance of payments deficit, if you will, in terms of money leaving the country, in terms of money no longer in the active economy. And then the vast majority of the money that is in the economy is in the fire sector, floating around in stocks and bonds and shitcoin. So what you've done now is you've literally drained the bathtub with demand leakages from savings, from offshoring, from being a net importer, to government cutting off the spigot, to raising interest rates. And what you've got is a financial cauldron for an absolute nuclear bomb, another shit show. And you've watched the price of housing go up. You've watched all the other private interests buying up the goddamn trailer parks even. Folks, pay attention. This is no joke. I mean, I hate knowing this stuff. I almost wish I didn't know this stuff so I didn't have to feel it all day long, but I do. I literally wake up in the morning feeling this and looking around wondering why nobody's panicking like I am. And it's disgusting. It drives me insane. They talk about wishing I could be blind. This is one of those areas where I wish I didn't have a clue. But unfortunately, I do, folks, and I'm hoping you guys pay attention to this too. That's
And
it,
what
Jordan. That's my take.
and what really drives me through a roof, if you haven't noticed, Status Coup has been doing an economic Hunger Games series, which I'm really proud of. I just talked to a senior who's rationing rice and beans to afford rent. I talked to an Asian family in Kentucky where the father is literally being threatened with jail time if he doesn't pay the $5,000 fine for uncut grass. I spoke with a young person who literally was on disability because of his multiple uh, muscular dystrophy. He was told by the Indiana whatever department that you're good when he got his job back. You don't have to pay anything back. Told that multiple times. Now he's being told he owes $9,000, and him and his wife are screwed. Let's play a clip from this, Colin. This is me interviewing a homeless advocate about essentially the criminalization of homelessness by the Democratic mayor Eric Adams and her thoughts on the booming economy. Can you kind of talk about the bigger picture here? It's not just New York. Homelessness is exploding everywhere. And, currently the president is going out saying we're in the midst of a historic economic recovery. I go around, it's pretty historically bad for a lot of working class people with the rent and the gas and food. You've been to a lot of these, tent cities. Could you kind of talk about what the reality is compared to, a lot of the fantasy being floated by politicians?
The reality is, a lot of these people, they can't even afford to buy a slice of pizza. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. They don't know where they're going to get money for basic necessities. There are a lot of people out here that don't even have a winter coat. They can't even afford to go purchase a winter coat. We just had to do a coat drive because a lot of people are out here in like hoodies or t-shirts because they literally can't afford proper winter clothing. And so they're saying that there's an economy boost, but the economy boost is for people that already have money. They're not talking about working class. A lot of these working class are struggling. It's sad because they're painting this false reality when you walk on the street, you can literally just walk through Soho and like near Tompkins Square Park or Washington Square Park, and you see all of these houseless people begging for money, and it's not them begging because they want to, they're begging because they need to, because even if they do have a job, they can't make the basic needs. This economy boost is only for them. It's not for regular people that actually need it.
And she came on with me right after her appearance on CNN. So it's driving me fucking crazy, Steve, because you know what? This is a cyclical thing. It happens under Bush. It happens under Obama, Trump. We get these narratives. The economy is bouncing back because of artificial numbers like the unemployment rate and GDP and the stock market. When if you go around, I mean, people that were formerly doing good are now having to leave their apartments, not just in cities, even in more rural area, prices are going up. And we're being fed because it's politically advantageous when the job numbers come out. Biden crowing about a historic recovery, and the Republicans will do the same thing when they're back in office. When meanwhile, on the ground, I don't know, wages have gone up slightly, but inflation has gone up more. I don't think it's much different than it has been for the last 40 years.
No, it's stagflation. I mean, I'm just checking out the chat, and what's a little sad about this is because there's these narratives, these separate narratives about the Fed, and people get spun around the axle because they want to be James Bond. It's more spicy on the tongue, I guess. I don't know. The fact of the matter is that Nancy Pelosi is in charge of the House, which has the power of the purse, period. Article 1, Section 8, right there. Article 1, Section 8. And so Congress alone has the power of the purse. They create money out of thin air by writing it into a bill. You can't create inches and pounds. The bottom line is the Fed keystrokes them into the Treasury's accounts. Okay? It's keystrokes. We're not talking about some major thing. They are an agent of the goddamn Congress, period. Congress is a corrupt system. Congress is a bunch of corrupt people that are on the take. You want to end Congress? Okay, fine. You want to end the Fed? Give me a fucking break. Jesus Christ, learn how it works. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that ultimately, when you have neoliberals in Congress and you have neoliberals running the Fed because they're appointed by Congress and appointed by the president and so forth, and you have a neoliberal system behaves as a neoliberal system does. In order to have different people running it, you got to have different people in office, but you got to be able to get them in office. And if you can't get them in office, you're not going to have any of the things that we're talking about come to be. So all this stuff, the economic Hunger Games that Jordan's showing you there, it is highly dependent on you shedding the conspiracies, because what's happening is bad enough. It's really, really freaking bad. Okay. But you got to understand that the problem here is not whether or not the Federal Reserve is the one keystroking inches into the system, or whether Congress or the Treasury is keystroking digits into the system, or whether it's on a card, or whether it's whatever. The bottom line here is that Congress alone spends money into existence by law. Congress is not doing its job. Well, it is doing its job. It's just not for you and I. We're not the key market. It's the people above. It's capital. And it's been baked into the Constitution from day one. I'm hoping that you all will take the time to realize that the real James Bond novel is happening in the streets as people are starving, or as people are getting kicked out of their homes. That's where the real James Bond novels happen. And you really need to be focused on that, because that's where it needs to be. The Fed and all this other stuff, that right there is just spicy talk for the midnight, hey, I've had too many tokes off the bong, creature from Jekyll Island crap. Use that as kindling for your next fire. There is real information out there. Don't get sucked into bullshit, really, for real. Focus instead on helping these people out. And the way you're going to do that is by understanding that Congress alone can change it instantly. And they're not. And they're not. And that's where the key is. That's the key.
Thanks for watching. And make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.